Season 7's 9th episode of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. aired recently, and I, ever the fan of the show, am here to break it all down, so I hope you'll join me once more after the intro. Well, hello there! My name's Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, where I talk about all aspects of Disney, from the animated movies to the theme parks to Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, and the TV shows, and everything else in between. And that is why it's Freeform. And keep coming back every day for new daily content. If you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're watching the newest season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and it's time to talk all about Episode 9, also known as I Have Always Been. A beautiful reference to good old Enoch. And now you may say I'm a little late in posting this one. Well, you are right. But hey, this is no time to argue about time when we're about to talk about a time loop episode. So maybe you're just watching it at the wrong time. No? No more time jokes? Well, fine then. With no time to waste, let's start on into the episode. Now, first off, I am a giant fan of Groundhog Day time loops, whether it is in TV shows such as Stargate SG-1's Window of Opportunity, Russian Doll, Traveler's 17 Minutes, etc., 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 or movies such as, say, Groundhog Day itself or Edge of Tomorrow. And no, I refuse to call it by the bland, rebranded name of Live, Die, Repeat. I love Edge of Tomorrow as its title, and that's what it originally was, and it's sticking that way. And yes, I admit the graphic novel has a different name altogether, but that's not my point here. Well, anyway, I am just a huge sucker for these types of movies or shows. And generally, I'm gonna like them regardless because I just love the concept so much. Now that said, this one was an excellent take on it. Just, so good. And here's why. So first off, there are two levels of time loop going on here. So our main character in this one is Daisy. She's waking up out of the stasis pod that was helping go ahead and heal her. And we've made the argument that, hey, it's all about those special futuristic sleeping pods that kind of were why they were protected from the time loop. Hey, that's all we need. Don't need any more explanation. That works fine. Let's go with it. Anyway, so Daisy keeps repeating this, and it's not repeating a day. Trust me, it's way shorter than that. But we find out she's not the only one looping because she ends up eventually activating Coulson, who tells her that no, we've gone through this a whole bunch of times already. You don't even remember it because when you die, you forget everything. So Coulson actually is the one person who's aware of, well, almost every loop because he's not really aware of all of them because the problem is he starts powered down. So if nobody powers him up before the loop restarts again, yeah. So essentially, every X number of loops when Daisy happens to die rather than just reaching the end of the time period, well then Coulson has to essentially spend multiple loops re-walking her through what they've learned and getting her back up to speed. Oh, I love the double layer of loops, it's great. But that's not all. We have one other special thing going on with this time loop. Well, that's because we are in a time storm. Or as Sousa would say, hey, we're just tossing together words to make them sound cool now, right? And hey, let's be honest, we are. And Time Storm does sound cool. But essentially what happened was, at the end, we jumped within a jump. So now we are in a time storm and we are getting closer to this vortex that will probably destroy us or make it so it never existed or something like that. Something horrible and deadly. But what doesn't get realized till later is, guess what? Every time there's a time loop, they are getting closer and closer and closer to that vortex. So there is certainly a time limit to how long they can keep looping before they're all dead, or never existed. And all of this makes the setup for the time loop really good off the bat. Now, as is unsurprising from what I've said already, this is a super Daisy and Coulson focused episode. And hey, that's great right off the bat. Kind of makes it a little more towards some of the earlier seasons where we really did have Daisy and Coulson really get to spend a little more time together. And gotta love that. Well, let's talk about Coulson a little more here. So, what this time loop does to Coulson is big. So, first off, he's a hugely not a fan of starting each cycle powered down. It's very disconcerting. No kidding. Talk about making you really not feel human and alive right there. And we get this piece between Daisy and Coulson at one point. Because this is after we found out that somebody's trying to kill their people to stop the secret from coming out. More on that in a moment. We'll get back there. But anyway, he basically talks about how someone's trying to kill our people and why doesn't it piss you off to Daisy? And you can see visibly angry. It's really gotten to him. And that he sees Daisy dying and doesn't like watching her die over and over, or any of them die over and over. And while sure, we'll figure this out, but in the meantime, it's soul-crushing, and what's worse is it links to who he really is now, and how he's not really Coulson himself, but really in this robot body, and, well, heck, not Coulson at all, but is Coulson, because he's going to watch them all die, eventually. They'll all get old at best, and die, while he keeps living. And what's worse is not because he decided for this life. Heck, if anything, Coulson said he never wanted this to happen. He was very clear on that point. There was a big old DNR on that, do not resuscitate and put me in a robot body. Very clear. But yeah, and so yeah, he now no longer has the choice. At least not for the time being. And as we like doing with these kind of conversations, we end it with him having a realization on who the killer actually is. It's our way of getting out of that without having to keep the conversation going and going. Kind of like what we did with him and Mabe just back a few episodes when we were over in 1976, not 1776. That'd be a little bit older right there. Okay, let's jump to another character who actually got a fairly decent size in this. Sousa actually got a fair bit of time in here. And that was by virtue of Daisy in this case. Because we're finally looking a little deeper at the whole little Daisy Sousa thing that we could see that was going on beneath the surface right there. Now, sometimes in shows, there just isn't the chemistry in a relationship that is supposed to be one. This one, oh yeah, I felt the chemistry in that one under the surface. So yeah, it's nice to see it finally coming to fruition. And yes, the conversation is fun. It's touching. It's awkward at times. And it's really nice. Now, actually, in one of the later loops, Daisy kisses him. Although that wasn't the final loop, so we don't know whether she actually kissed him in the final loop or not, but I'm sure we'll see some more later on in the show as to what does happen. So let's jump into talking about Simmons, let's say here. So Simmons has a decent role in here, not huge, but it's important because we've got to fix the time drive to get the heck out of this. And we figured the only way to really do that is to get Diana out of her head so that she actually remembers everything she needs in order to fix it. But it is very, very bad for that to happen because that puts good old Fitz and everybody in danger. And so they built fail-safes to make sure that didn't happen. And when I say they, I mean Fitz and Simmons actually put in fail-safes to make sure it didn't happen. And the fail-safe here being Enoch. They programmed Enoch to make sure it never happened, including killing them, if needed. Yeah. So, over the course of this, we get to watch our people die again and again, because Enoch is there to go kill them. As soon as they try to start taking Diana out of Simmons' head, that is. Before that, well, no, we just run out of time. And I mean, there is some great humor in those loops of trying to get everything to work. Oh, I love some of the pieces, whether it's Sousa trying to delay Enoch and just, yeah. Or whether it's the time where everybody is there and it's, where did he get all those weapons? As you see them all in a pile. And then you see Deke looks kind of dead. And Maxwell, do we need to be sad about that? Daisy, we do not. Oh, only in a time loop episode can we get away with that one right there. Yeah. Well, eventually we go ahead and get it to work so that we delay Enoch enough that we can go get Diana out of Simmons' head. And, well, we find out, well, who's it going to have to come from? It's going to have to come from Enoch. He's got an electrocom displacement mechanism, which is essentially like his heart, but it can fix the time drive. And there's one other little thing that happens here, and that is that she starts to remember something, and she is really sad, crying. It's hugely affecting her. And there's this, oh my God, what have I done? I'm so sorry. Well, that's not ominous at all. And of course, then the time loops, so we don't say anything more of that. But clearly coming up in these last few episodes, we're going to find out what the heck that reaction was about. Whew. Yeah. Makes you worry for good old Fitz right there, that's for sure. Okay, so let's move on to the finale. They gather everyone together in the same location so they can talk during this climatic final loop. Essentially, they're all but there to the vortex, so there's no more time anyway. And they say what the problem is, and everybody is starting to debate the issue. And, well, in the middle of that, Enoch unsurprisingly pulls his heart, shall we say, out while the others were still debating. Wasn't even a question for him. I mean, you get the whole, Enoch, what did you do? What needed to be done, apparently. Enoch, you'll die. And the rest of you will live. I would like to think Fitz would do the same for me. I would like to think all of you would. What else would you expect out of Enoch right there? Good old Enoch just being there for everyone else, even at the expense of his life. Although, in fairness, Enoch has lived a heck of a lot longer than anyone else around here has, or will for that matter. Although I guess Coulson could live that long. So with that, the rest of the team leaves. They head off to go get everything working so we can get the heck out of the time storm. And we leave Daisy, Coulson, and Enoch in there. And we have a big old conversation. And this is some of the highlight of the entire episode right here. In a way I never expected to pop up in a time loop episode. I mean, not like I expected Enoch to be dying in an episode either, let's be quite frank. We get this whole talk about death and the fear of death and that anxiety. And even for a guy like Enoch, who originally wasn't worried about being alone, but now actually is. He does feel lonely to be alone. And, well, guess what? Yeah, you can only be with me up until the end. And that's it. And that's scary. It's like, oof, yeah. And we also get some important conversation in there that really is relevant to Coulson too, and all of the problems Coulson is going through right now. Back to the point that, hey, it's different to watch your friends go before you. It's easier to be the one that goes first, and it can be harder to stay and have to watch all that happen. Some important stuff for Coulson there, and I'm sure we will delve further into that in these last few episodes. And then we got this really interesting, ominous piece about where the show is going. Because good old Enoch lets Daisy know that, well, yes, guess what? Your friends will indeed survive, but the team will not. And that's the nature of families. People arrive, we celebrate, people leave, and we grieve. And hey, that's how it goes. And so clearly this is the last mission for our agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for one reason or another. Although apparently they will survive it, but they won't be together afterward. Well, if that's not ominous a little bit. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, right? And Enoch's very last line in there, talking about Fitz being his friend and, well, being a friend to everyone, as he has always been. Yeah. And the episode ended perfectly. Enoch dies, then the ship jumps, and Mac's voice comes in just to say that, hey, this jump made it, they're all safe. And we slowly pull out and fade to black. It was a beautiful ending to the episode. And one heck of an emotional one. I mean, it got to me. I didn't expect Enoch's death of all things to get to me that way, but it did. Oh, and I guess, yeah, there was also a button for what it's worth. Although, I gotta be honest with you, the button felt forced. It was jarring when you follow that really impactful finale with having to watch that button. Heck, I would have gone for a black button, just nothing, or even a button that just we looked at good old Coulson and Daisy and Enoch just still sitting there. And just did that for 20 seconds. But anyway, the button was we saw Nathaniel and Cora over in Afterlife, and Cora was busy training her powers. Just a setup to remind you, hey, this is where we're going with next episode. That's really all it was. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we now have definitely a new favorite episode for good old Freeform Disney, for me, for season 7. Because yeah, this definitely takes the cake. We had some big character moments in this episode for Daisy, for Coulson, and for Enoch. And even Sousa had a bit of a moment in there in that relationship with Daisy. We got some great Daisy-Coulson interactions, which makes me realize how much I miss them. And, well, I should say how much I'm really going to miss those interactions and all of the interactions that are in the show once it finishes in just a couple more weeks. Now, this episode was a time loop episode, which I always find a ton of fun, and this one made great innovations on the model that I loved. And wow, I mean, dang, it was anything but a throwaway episode. There was so much character development going on in here. And of course, Enoch's death too. It's like, whew, something that easily could have just been this fun throwaway episode, and it was certainly not. And there were so many good, funny moments during it. And heck, even the mystery and solving it were fun and enjoyable. So, yeah, I mean, wow, this was one heck of an episode. And on top of all of that, I should just make this little note that this was Elizabeth Henstridge's person who played Simmons. It was her first time directing, and she knocked it out of the park on this one. Now, I don't know if anything will top this for me later in the season, but I am guessing the season finale will at the very least give it a run for its money, and certainly might pull it off. But hey, only time will tell. Hey, I had to have one more time joke in there somewhere, right? And hey, with that, it's that time, so what about you? Did you enjoy this episode as much as I did? What was your favorite part? Let me know down below in the comments. And thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, share it with anyone you think will too, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. Have a magical day, and may the Force be with you. Always.